Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wild at Work. My name is Megan Pineda. I'm the Adult Education Specialist with Texas Wildlife Association. Joining us today is Katie Harris with the Xerces Society. Katie serves as a Xerces Society Insect Pollinator Conservation Specialist and is also a partner biologist with the NRCS Texas State Office in Temple. Katie received her MS degree in Environmental Science and Policy from the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, where she conducted a biodiversity survey of spiders. Katie began studying and creating effective monarch butterfly habitat in 2018 and graduated from the University of Missouri in 2023 with a PhD in plant, insect, and microbial sciences. Prior to joining the Xerces Society, she worked as a postdoctoral researcher with the University of Texas at Austin, examining the effects of parasitism on dung beetle ecosystem services in Central Texas. Outside of work, you can find Katie spending time with her parrots and riding horses. Welcome, Katie. Before I hand the reins over to you, I'd like to remind everybody here today to please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. If you would like to ask a question, please do post it in the chat. We'll do our best to answer all questions at the end of the presentation. Katie, I'm going to go ahead and let you screen share and we can begin.
Hello, everyone. Is everyone able to see my screen right now?
Yep, we've got it.
Very good, thank you. All right, let's do a little test. There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Megan, and thank you, Texas Wildlife Association, for hosting me today. I'm so excited to talk to you about how different management strategies, primarily grazing and burning, affect our insect pollinator friends. The Xerces Society is named after the Xerces blue butterfly, which is the first butterfly in North America that we know of to have gone extinct due to human activity. And the goal of Xerces Society is to simply help prevent this from happening again. We have many, I'm actually relatively new. I just started in November, and I am currently the only Xerces Society employee present in Texas. And I'm based out of the state office, NRCS office in Temple. And we do have a range of staff in different programs. So we have a pollinator program, which I'm part of, endangered species program, and a pesticides team. Just a wealth of knowledge from across the United States. And so lots of collaboration with each other. And it's really nice to have, like, for example, a pesticide team to go to who are experts on pesticides. So I'm also a partner biologist with NRCS, and their motto is keeping working lands in working hands. And part of my work is helping landowners and NRCS staff sort of create and maintain these wonderful pollinator habitats that are so necessary for our functioning ecosystems and our agriculture and everything. So there are some key pollinators in Texas I'll briefly go over. Um, Really quick, let me see. There, I'll minimize that so you can see a little bit better. There's some key pollinators in Texas that I'll go over. There are bumblebees, about 9 species present across Texas, and they're very efficient pollinators. They're the big-bodied, beautiful bumblebees, one of my favorites. There's also syrphid flies, which in my opinion are a little bit underrated. They're very efficient for their size. They do look like bees, though, and you can tell that they're not based off of their antennae. If you look at the front of that little syrphid fly's face, it's got kind of like stout antennae, and it's got one pair of wings versus two. Flies have what are called halteres instead of the second set of wings. So that's one way you can help identify them in the field. And then there's also butterflies like sulfurs, swallowtails, fritillaries, monarchs, elfins, etc. A few other native bees in Texas that you would be likely to see are leafcutter bees like the family Megachilidae. These are really interesting and fun because as opposed to other insect pollinator or other bee pollinators, they don't collect the pollen on their hind legs. They actually collect it on scopa or scopy on the undersides of their abdomen. So they've got like fluffy bellies, so they're real cute. And then squash bees, special interest to farmers potentially growing cucurbids, squash all of that. And then there's also sweat bees in the family Halictidae, and oftentimes they're that really pretty green color. Rangelands are a really important habitat for insect pollinators, as well as lots of other biodiversity as well. Rangelands provide nectar and pollen for our bees and butterflies, as well as the occasional patch of bare dirt, which is really great for ground nesting bees, which comprise about 70% of our native bee species, and as well as bunch grasses for ground nesting bees as well, like bumblebees. And then it also provides pithy stems or hollow stems. Certain species of forbs and shrubs will provide this for the stem nesting bees, which comprise about 30% of our native bees as well. And then our native grasses are super important for different species of butterflies and moths like skippers. And what we want to see in ideal rangeland system is a year-long bloom. So we have species blooming in the spring, throughout the summer, and then again in the fall. Just this constant supply of nectar and pollen for these wonderful pollinators, as well as a diversity of plant families. So ideally, there'll be different plant families present so that all of these specialist insects that might be typically overlooked have their host plants present. You have a higher likelihood of meeting all the needs of the diversity of insects that you have if you have a diversity of plant families as well. Monarchs are one of these awesome insect pollinators, and a lot of my work is actually focused towards monarchs. My dissertation work was on monarchs, and Texas is a very important state for monarchs. So essentially, monarchs are in decline, and we really want to know about their resources that they require, and essentially what, when, and where. What do they need? Where do they need it? And when do they need it? And Texas is this wonderful state where in the springtime we have monarchs migrating up through Mexico, laying eggs on milkweed. So in the early spring, you'd want to have lots of milkweed present, like March to early April, so that they can deposit their eggs on the milkweed and then form the next generation that will migrate even more north. And then successive generations will continue migrating northwards. And then in the fall, Texas is essentially a funnel for all of these southerly migrating monarchs. Funnels right through the middle of the state, about a 300-mile wide path is like kind of the focal area. And that's typically from late September through November. And another path along the coast is typically a little bit more mid-October to mid-November. And during this time, they really require high quality nectar to fuel their flight and also to store lipids for overwintering in Mexico. So as I kind of just highlighted, monarchs really require two major resources, which is milkweed and then also flower nectar. So the monarchs will lay one egg at a time, singly on a plant, a milkweed plant, and it will hatch in about 3 to 5 days. Caterpillar will grow for about 10 to 14. Same with the chrysalis will take around 10 to 14 days as well, and then you'll have your adult monarchy close. So Xerces has a database that they've been compiling for years to help identify the nectar resources that monarchs use. And the data right now is a little sparse in Texas, and that's part of my goal for my position is helping bolster this data set so that we understand what resources monarchs truly are using and what they need for their migration. But essentially, four main plant families stand out when it comes to nectar needs for monarchs. Asteraceae, the aster family is one of them, and typically I would think of mist flowers, lightress, blazing stars, goldenrod, and then not only is dogbane family, so milkweeds, not only are milkweeds important for monarch larval development, but they're also important for a nectar source as well. Monarchs love the nectar from milkweeds as well. And then the mint family, so like bergamot bee balms and sages, as well as vervains, like the Texas vervain. And then once again, these are resources that really need to be present for monarchs in the spring and fall, especially because that's when their main migration is headed through the state. And one of the species of plants that has been identified as being super important for monarchs in Texas is the frostweed. And its name is likely derived from the fact that when it freezes in the winter, water exudes from the stems in those really cool patterns on the right there. But this has been identified as one of the very important nectar species for monarchs, particularly in the fall, because it will bloom through November, I believe. And it's just really great for the migrating monarchs. So in terms of maintaining habitat for pollinators, disturbance is a natural part of the ecology of the Great Plains and rangeland systems. Prescribed fire has been used by the Native Americans for clearing crop area, for easier travel, for a host of things, really, for hunting and just maintaining the land in its best form. And grazing by bison was widespread. It helps keep down some of that really competitive tall grass and helps promote that diversity. And sort of this early successional habitat is so important for pollinators because the early successional habitat essentially knocks down competition and allows for all of this diversity in the seed bank to once again compete and become expressed. So essentially what I'd like to highlight today is how burning and grazing in particular impact pollinators. And of course, pollinators can include butterflies, flies, uh, moths, wasps, beetles, and also bees. So there are many benefits to prescribed burning. Fire really helps the grasslands stay grasslands. It'll kill or top kill woody plants, increase bare ground for forb seed germination. So once again, we're kind of clean slate, and then you have a chance for a lot of your forbs to become expressed through the seed bank. And it also increases the blooming of multiple wildflower species as well. So you can imagine a habitat like this is a lot less flashy or useful to insect pollinators and diversity in general than a habitat like this. So essentially, keeping away that woody encroachment and helping maintain the grasslands in a diverse and healthy way is what prescribed grazing can help us accomplish. Or I'm sorry, prescribed burning can help us accomplish. And there's also research to show that floral abundance can be improved after burns. These photos, I believe, were taken 3 months after a burn. And this was dissertation work from my boss, Ray Morans, Dr. Ray Morans, who's based in Oklahoma. And I believe this research was in Missouri. So grazing can also be beneficial to pollinators under the certain contexts of grazing intensities. Grazing can promote the wildflower diversity as well by helping knock down some of those tall grasses and provide this heterogeneous vegetation structure. So help with some of the highly competing species and just help us with expressing what's in our seed bank as well and keeping the habitat disturbed and heterogeneous. But in general, as grazing intensity increases, butterfly and pollinator abundance and diversity tend to decrease. So on the left here in this photo, you can see a highly grazed area, and on the right, you can see where the grazing has been excluded. There's flowering plants on the right, and not too much on the left. It's pretty short and a little bit boring. There are some direct effects of grazing on pollinators. They could get trampled by just direct walking of the cattle in highly grazed areas. Pollinators could get directly trampled, and then also a host plant could become consumed, and the livestock, due to the livestock, and will decline or disappear. And then prescribed fire, of course, can also directly harm bees and butterflies. They can kill pollinators of any life stage. So the fire, as you can imagine, will directly harm whatever is being burned, essentially, and what can't get away, including some ground nesting bees, the ones that tend to nest a little bit more shallowly. And you'll have this immediate loss of habitat as well. So, when you burn anything that was there, like flowering, of course, it's not going to immediately be flowering in the moment. And it will also eliminate stem nesting sites for those that like the pithy stems. Those usually take a year or two to sort of refresh and renew because it takes some time for the plants to grow back up and then for the stems to be usable by the bees. And then prescribed fire can also harm butterflies as well. It incinerates butterflies particularly at the stages where they can't move or get away. So, flying butterflies and moths can, oftentimes get away, but some of the more immobile forms, it'll catch those. There are some best management practices you can follow to help limit some of this. And so one of those is to not burn any more than a third of your total property in a year. So this will help minimize direct mortality. It'll provide refugia habitats within the other two-thirds of your property for at least some of the mobile insects to get over to, and then also provides habitat for those to be surviving in that area so that they can recolonize when needed. And if small portions of your burn unit don't combust, you can leave them, and those will also serve as refuge for some of these immobile insects. And then rotating season of burn is also a great consideration. Oftentimes, when I think of trying to avoid harm for monarchs, I would try to choose the times when they're not um, migrating in Texas or breeding actively. So that would be like after November, but before March, ideally. And that's a common time to burn as well, like during dormant time. But if you can mix up the season, that's recommended as well, so that you're not always getting the same insects essentially at the same life stage every year or every time you burn. And then, but control burns can be tricky, so you want to burn when you can, essentially when it's safe to do so. And because burning in general is just really great. It's really great for habitat. And then there are some grazing best management practices as well. So ideally, you want to use proper stocking rate. Like we discussed, too high of a stocking rate and everything will just be super short and you won't have these flowers being expressed, and it's just too much to handle. Allow time for plant recovery and consider deferring your grazing. And then try to change the season of use from year to year. So if you have multiple pastures that you're rotating, try to mix it up and put the cattle in different pastures, different times from year to year. So, like, what is proper stocking rate and how much time is needed for plant recovery? These are going to be highly variable and based on your goals as well. But it's also going to be based on how many cattle you have and how much land you have as well. And then which plants are present. So, like, how long they would need to recover and to flower again. There's also something called pyrrhic herbivory, and that's like patch burn grazing. So you can actually add the two of these together, burning and grazing. And what's really cool is that you can burn an area. So ideally, it wouldn't be more than one third of your total area. And then once that new growth comes through after the burn, it's like really nutritious and really fresh. And cattle tend to like that. So you can let the cattle over in that highly flashy area, and other parts of your property can have more time to recover as well. The best management interval recommendation for this is at least 3 years in between burning a particular patch. And Dr. Shelley Wiggum of the Nature Conservancy in Kansas has data showing that the combination of these two together is actually superior in terms of diversity of bee and butterfly species than just doing them individually, which is really cool. So this is an example of an Oklahoma rangeland that has been burned and grazed. And as you can see, there is grasses for skippers. There's milkweed, I believe, butterfly milkweed in the foreground, flowering for the bees. And in the background, I think there's some Asclepias viridis, the green, and that one's got a monarch egg on it. And it's just this nice habitat with varied flowers available and varied species. So some takeaway messages from this are that fire grazing and fire grazing together are highly variable disturbances. Disturbance is generally very good for maintaining our early successional habitats that pollinators love so much. And the impacts of these disturbances will vary based on the species present and insects that are using them. So try not to put all of your eggs in one basket. And try to go for spatiotemporal variability. So try different patches at different times. So essentially patch burning, patch haying, patch grazing, patch burn grazing. So the two of them together. just try to mix it up a bit and not try to do too much at once so that there are these refuges for the insect pollinators to be able to utilize in the meantime. Um, Pivoting just a little bit, um, all of these forbs that are great for insect pollinators are not only good for insect pollinators and biodiversity in general, but they can also be nutritious to cattle. There's been a recent research collaboration essentially between a number of universities, Xerces, NRCS, and the Grassland Coalition. And they actually looked at the nutritional value of various forb species for cattle. And this is a Northern Great Plains edition. I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be some ability to do that here in Texas as well. So not all of the species in this resource here are applicable for Texas, but it just goes to show that a lot of these species are actually beneficial for cattle as well. And this document is free online. If you search it on Xerces, it's available. So essentially, do cows eat forbs? Yes. Essentially, throughout the entire year, it's estimated that 20 to 45% of cattle diets are comprised of wildflowers and flowering shrubs. And in the summertime in particular, it's about 25% forbs and shrubs and 75% grasses. And this work highlights that there are more opportunities for livestock to meet their nutritional and mineral needs when there is a diverse habitat. So if it's only grasses, they might be missing out on some of these nutrients that are available at various times of the year through these flowering forbs. So here's an example of what's in this resource. I pulled up the lead plant Amorpha canescens as the example species. And there's lots of information in here about the species itself as well as the plant nutrition. And I'll pull this up a little bit bigger here. So in terms of total digestible nutrients, we have the breakdown here. In black is lead plants. So that's the species we're looking at. In red are warm season grasses and blue are cool season grasses. And the dotted line horizontally across the chart is the minimum requirement nutritional needs for a 1,200-pound lactating cow. And so as you can see, this species in particular, it meets and exceeds all year long the total digestible nutrient requirements for cattle throughout the season. And in this example, superior to some of the grasses. And then in terms of crude protein, the same story essentially. And each species within this document vary a little bit. And so there's also information here on the nutrients as well, the minerals, and potassium and calcium. It looks like they exceed the requirements, and phosphorus is just barely below, but kind of similar to the grasses. There's also information about what the plant provides in terms of nectar, pollen, food for our beneficial insect predators, as well as pollinators. So where could you get more information if you're looking into maybe doing some of these management strategies, but also want to be on the lookout for pollinators? We have free PDFs on xerces.org. This one's the rangeland management and pollinators document. And this one's really great for best management practices of prescribed fire, grazing, haying, brush and weed control, and also interseeding, where you add species back into the landscape. And it goes through all the best management practices for each of these for pollinators as well. So depending on like the history of your land that you have and what's in the seed bank and whatnot, you can manage the land sometimes by doing like the light disking and the grazing and the burning, and sometimes the seeds are already present in the seed bank and will become expressed. If for some reason you want to add more diversity, or if there isn't too much being expressed in the seed bank, you can add more species through like interseeding or another method. And we have resources for that as well, for helping choose which species to add to your rangeland. We have a Milkweeds of Oklahoma and Texas document that goes through different milkweed species and some more information on them, as well as native plants for pollinators and beneficial insects, Southern Plains edition. And that one also highlights light requirements, soil, and other insect information as well. But one of my favorite resources, if you want to spend a little time, this one's really fun. It gives you a lot, is the Eco-Regional Revegetation Application. And this was, I believe it was a collaboration between Xerces and the Federal Highway Department. And essentially, it's this huge database with lots of pollinator information as well on plants in your ecoregion. So what you can do is you can go to the website and you can select your ecoregion, for example, Western Gulf Coastal Plain, and you can filter the data for plant type, like if you want herbs, shrubs, trees, and you can filter it a couple other ways as well, like if you want it to be a workhorse pollinator plant. There's also information on if it's likely commercially available or not. And then you can press download filtered plants and it'll give you this wonderful, huge, beautiful spreadsheet containing a whole host of information, including lots of pollinator information for each plant species. But you can also then further filter it by soil moisture and pollinator information, growth type, soil type, like a whole bunch of different parameters. And it's really fun to look at to try to find species that will match your local ecotype and your needs. And if you're interested in receiving technical or financial support from NRCS, there you can go to the USDA Service Center locator and just type in your state and your county, and it will refer you to your nearest NRCS office as well. And if you're having problems finding that or don't really want to do it, just send me an email and I'll find your local service center. And they're also able to provide support, whether technical or financial support to achieve your pollinator goals. And now, because I love monarchs so much and they're a large part of my job, I can't help but tell you something really cool about tracking monarchs. There's a little bit of new technology out for tracking monarchs, and I think you guys will want to hear about it. So there's these new transmitters out, and this is put on by the Cape May Point Science Center and Cellular Tracking Technologies. There's an app you can download to follow them. So essentially, these new transmitters, they use the Internet of Things, and so you can passively collect so much more data than you could before. Before, when you track monarchs or other animals, you'd have to have these like expensive receivers to sort of get the pings again to collect like recollect data on movement after you let them go. But this one uses the Internet of Things, and we get so many more sort of pings and like points along their movement. It's very cool. So anyway, the app is called Project Monarch Science, and it's free on the Play Store or the iPhone equivalent. And easy to use. You can follow individual monarchs. So I have some screenshots here of what it looks like when you get into it. Right now, it's a little bit messy on the full United States map view, just because there's some trackers that went off last fall, and they might there's like some more that were more recently put on, and it's a little bit messy. So I would instead recommend going over here and selecting the individual monarch category. All of the ones released by Xerces have an X to start off their names. And what you can do is track individual monarchs and see how far they've traveled. So essentially, this is what the new transmitters look like. They use, I believe, eyelash glue to stick them to the thorax of the butterflies, and they aren't supposed to get in the way of mating or any they aren't supposed to negatively affect them in any way. There is a researcher on the East Coast who's studying some of the more subtle effects that they may be having on monarchs, but they have a little solar panel on the back of them, which is also really cool. And so essentially, they can go for as long as the butterfly lives, I believe. I mean, the ones that migrate live, what, 9 months, maybe a little bit more. And yeah, essentially, millions of our devices can detect these transmitters. So we're able to really watch the monarchs migration. It's really cool. Here's a photo of my supervisor, Dr. Ray Varans on the left. And on the right, an example of, I believe that one's a slightly older transmitter. But essentially that's where you put it, is on the back of the thorax of the butterfly. And he released, let's see, he released 20 monarchs from Mexico last fall. And of those, 14 of them made it to Mexico, which was really amazing to watch. Very cool. And then 7 of those made it to the overwintering colonies. And as you can see here, when you pull up the individual monarch in the green circle down at the bottom there, I highlighted the distance from release. So this monarch flew from the point that it got tagged, it flew about 1,100 miles, which is really cool. And so part of my objectives for this fall have been to collaborate with monarch researchers across the country and within Texas to really identify how we can best use this technology this year. Last year, it was kind of like all very new and we're testing it to see how it works and if it works. And this year we want to be a little bit more coordinated in our efforts. And I know Dr. Chip Taylor mentioned the importance of figuring out if monarchs born in Texas in the fall, like in October, do they actually migrate to Mexico? Nobody knows, so maybe we'll be able to find out. And along with that, some of the research I'll be conducting in the fall, October, November, will be more of this monarch nectaring observations to figure out where the monarchs are nectaring. And I also kind of want to know if how shade or mycorrhizae of shade, how that affects monarch usage of their resources as well, be it milkweed or nectar. There have been some recent studies, as well as some of my dissertation work, to show that having some shade nearby could be beneficial for monarchs. So just some things I want to look into this fall as well. And if anybody is interested in contributing to our data set for monarch nectaring observations, I do have a link to the one that everyone has been adding to for a while now, but I believe in about a month we're going to be getting a release of a new iNaturalist project. So be on the lookout for that. And then just when you're in your iNaturalist app, you're able to help us log the data there. That would be amazing. And thank you so much to all of Xerces' wonderful supporters that make my work possible, allowed me to be able to talk about pollinators with you all today. And thank you so much to the Texas Wildlife Association for hosting me. Um, any chance I can get about talking about pollinators, I'll gladly take it. And if you have any questions or just comments or anything, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to chat and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Katie. That was wonderful. You've got if you pull up the chat, you've got a lot of really great feedback from folks. The first question that I see that was asked just a bit ago from Catherine, are there some alternatives for homeowners who can't burn or graze to disturb their property?
Yes, there are other options. Yes, I believe mowing is a great option, especially for when you're first like establishing habitat or putting in new plants. Once it hits about 12 inches, 12 to 15 inches, you can mow it down to like 8 to 6 to 8, and that'll really help with the competitive edge as well. Um, that's the first one that really comes to mind. You could sometimes people use herbicides as well. I would highly recommend finding a super targeted one for that if that's the route you'd want to go. I'd also really recommend reaching out to your local NRCS office. They are just a wealth of knowledge, and they're very happy to help in any way that they can. And especially if it's a pollinator related project, I'll probably be in on it too. But so yes, there are other options.
Great, thanks. Susan asked, will the monarchs that are born in Texas in the fall be tested for OE before being fitted with tracking devices?
Yes, that is a great question. Absolutely. And so I don't know if everyone's familiar with how you test monarchs for OE, but it's really straightforward. Essentially, you can take a piece of clear tape and just super gently place it on the bottom of the abdomen of the butterflies where the OE and the scales would likely, that's usually where it gets sloughed off when they're flying around and moving. And you can just take that clear piece of tape and put it under a microscope, and you can visually see the OE, the ectoprotozoan parasite. And Yeah, it's very cool. And they will be checked, and they have been, at least everybody that I know from like Xerces and other organizations that I'm familiar with have been testing them for OE as well before releasing. And then also typically you only want to tag the monarchs that are a certain size so that you want them to be healthy monarchs as well that you put the tags on. So I believe there are protocols to in addition to like, size of butterfly and general like wing appearance as well. So you want one that looks like it'll do okay.
Okay, we have another question here from Sarah. What are your thoughts on tropical milkweed as a larval host plant?
Yes. Typically, Xerces does not recommend planting tropical milkweed at all. It's a not native species, and I believe there's been research to show that it sometimes even will break the migration. Monarchs are really attracted to it, and they really like to lay their eggs on it. So not typically recommended.
Okay. Mimi asked, what are some of the other initiatives that Xerces has planned for the state of Texas in addition to Project Monarch?
Ooh, other initiatives. I guess the really hard-hitting one right now is that we want to get more information on the monarch migration. Some of the other aspects of my role, I'm the only one in Texas right now, so and I'm like pretty new. I just started in November, but some of the other goals of my position are to set up demonstration plots throughout throughout Texas Hill Country and South Texas to show what really good monarch habitat looks like and how you can manage it as well as invite NRCS staff on site so that we can do trainings and show them like what's possible and what good monarch habitat looks like. Um, Other monarch research will be the tracking in the fall, and I've been providing a lot of resources to NRCS when I can, in terms of like technical notes and just resources so that planners planning these habitats can easily find species that will work for their area and that are commercially available, which is a tricky one, and just be able to provide these best management practices. But I'm hoping there'll be even more initiatives in the future.
Great, thanks, Katie. That's it for questions, unless anybody has something last minute they'd like to post in the chat, but we greatly appreciate you being here with us today, taking the time out of your schedule. And to everyone that is on this recording, we will have this presentation edited and posted to our Texas Wildlife Association YouTube page as well as our Wild at Work webpage on our website for viewing later. Please feel free to, again, it should be up within the next 24 to 48 hours. So please feel free to go back and view it again. I know there's a lot of really great resources that Katie shared. And Katie, I would imagine you're going to get a lot of additional monarch trackers out of the group today. So that'll be great
Yeah.
for your initiative, most definitely. Oh, I just had one other question. Jerry asked, with regard to nectar resources for monarchs, is both availability and preference method monitored?
Yes, so right now the data set itself, like the broad one across the United States, mostly just is looking at what they're found on. So yeah, preference is a really tricky one. I'm hoping that with my research in the fall, I'm also going to be identifying what species are also present in addition to what they're using, so that it'll be a little bit better able to tease apart like preference versus like what's just there and what's being used. But that's a really great question. Right now for what we have for Texas, it seems like mostly of like, oh, we found them using this, we found them using that, and that's what we have, which is still useful. But I agree that the preference should be teased apart appropriately in the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Again, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing your work in the state of Texas as we move forward.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you,
me.
Katie. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next month at Wild at Work.